My name is Ambassador Vasekaru, and I have sat on the Galactic Council for 140 cycles. I have watched empires rise and dissolve into dust. I have voted on the fate of 1,000 worlds. Nothing prepared me for the day the Kryvax fleet turned its guns on a small, backward planet called Earth, and I watched the entire chamber go silent with dread. Let me back up. Humanity joined our council 11 years ago. They were new, raw, loud in meetings where silence was custom. They asked questions no one else dared to ask, and they laughed at protocols that had stood for 10,000 years. Most delegates thought them an embarrassment, a species barely out of its own atmosphere, given a seat at the table only because the Preservation Accord required it. I did not think much of them either, until the day the Kryvax came. The Kyra Dominion had been probing the outer rim for a decade, testing weak worlds, absorbing them one by one under the polite fiction of resource cooperation. Earth was next on their list. Nobody expected them to announce it during a live council session. Ambassador Threll of the Kryvax delegation stood, a tall, chitinous figure whose voice always carried the calm of something that had already won. The Sol System's resources are being reclaimed, Threll said. Human vessels blocking Dominion access will be destroyed. This is not a declaration of war. It is correction. I remember the human delegate that day. Her name was Ambassador Dana Whitfield, a former Navy officer turned diplomat, gray at the temples, eyes like flint. She didn't stand. She didn't raise her voice. She simply said, "Try it." The chamber laughed. Not cruelly, just the tired laugh of people who had seen 100 species make empty threats before extinction. I laughed too. I am ashamed of that now. 3 days later, the Kryvax fleet entered the Sol System. 41 warships. Earth had 12. The Council convened an emergency session to watch the live feed. Not out of concern, if I am honest, but out of morbid curiosity. We expected a massacre. We expected to spend the next cycle debating refugee quotas and salvage rights over a dead world. What we got instead is why I am writing this account so that it is never forgotten. The feed opened on the Kryvax flagship's bridge, broadcasting to all Council worlds as a show of dominance. Threll himself gave the order. Humans of Earth, surrender your defense fleet or be destroyed. You have 1 hour. The response came back in under a minute. It wasn't from Whitfield. It was from a young human fleet commander named Elena Marsh, barely 30 years old, standing on the bridge of a ship called the USS Resolute. "You gave us an hour," she said. "We're gonna need way less than that." The chamber murmured. Threll actually smiled. I saw it, that thin predator satisfaction, and gave the order to advance. What happened next, I have replayed in my memory 1,000 times, and I still don't fully understand how they did it. Human ships don't fight like anyone else's. Every other species in this council builds fleets around size, armor, raw firepower, big, slow, magnificent statements of strength. Humans build fleets around something else entirely. Speed, deception, and a willingness to take losses that would break any other military doctrine in the galaxy. The 12 Earth ships didn't form a defensive line. They scattered, fast, erratic, impossible to target with conventional tracking. 3 of them dove directly into the Kryvax formation, guns blazing, absorbing point-blank fire that should have vaporized them instantly. 2 of those 3 were destroyed. But in the 4 minutes it took the Kryvax gunners to kill them, those 2 ships had already done something far more important. They'd mapped the entire Kryvax targeting grid and beamed it, encrypted, to the rest of the fleet. I did not understand what I was watching. Neither did Threll. He kept ordering course corrections, kept trying to reform his lines, and every time he did, the human ships were already somewhere else. Hitting engine ports, hitting shield generators, hitting the exact seams in Kryvax armor that their scout ships had bled and died to find. "They are sacrificing vessels for tactical data," said the Yeshka delegate beside me, disbelief thick in her translated voice. "No civilized species trades lives for information that cheaply." I said nothing. I was watching the human commander's face on a secondary feed. Elena Marsh, jaw tight, eyes wet, giving orders to send more ships into the grinder. She wasn't cold. She was devastated. And she kept going anyway. 11 minutes in, the Kryvax had lost 6 warships. Earth had lost 5. By any galactic military logic, this should have been the moment the humans retreated to save what remained. Instead, Commander Marsh did something that made the entire council chamber rise to its feet. She ordered her remaining 7 ships to charge. Not scatter. Not retreat. Charge. Directly at Threll's flagship, guns overloading past every safety threshold. Straight into the heart of the Kryvax formation. "She's insane," Threll said. "Live on the feed." And for the first time I heard something crack in his composure. "All batteries, target the lead vessel, the Resolute." But the Resolute wasn't leading anymore. It had fallen back, silent, powered down, drifting like wreckage among the debris field. Threll's sensors had marked it dead an hour ago. Nobody was watching it. At the exact moment the 6 remaining human ships slammed their weapons into the Kryvax flagship's failing shields, the Resolute came back online, 12 kilometers behind Threll's fleet, and fired a single spinal railgun round that had been charging in total silence since the battle began. It went through 6 Kryvax hulls in a straight line before it hit the flagship's reactor core. Threll's ship didn't explode. It came apart, slow, silent, atmosphere venting in a bright ring against the dark. 41 warships reduced in 11 minutes to a scattering of survivors already broadcasting surrender codes. The council chamber was dead silent. I remember Ambassador Whitfield standing up, walking to the center of the floor, and speaking without any triumph in her voice at all. "We told you an hour wasn't necessary," she said. 6 of our people didn't come home today. We're not celebrating. But we will always answer a threat to Earth the same way, no matter what it costs us. I hope, for everyone's sake, nobody makes us prove it again." Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Threll's seat sat empty for the rest of the session. The Dominion recalled him within the hour, and the reparations negotiations that followed stripped 3 systems from Kryvax control without a single shot fired. No one argued the terms. I have sat through 140 cycles of Council history. I have watched fleets larger than Earth's entire navy surrender without a fight simply because someone showed them a bigger gun. That is not what frightened this chamber. What frightened us was that humanity didn't win because they had a bigger gun. They won because they were willing to lose everything, piece by piece, ship by ship, person by person, and never once considered stopping. Every species on this council understands strength. We have built our entire civilization around measuring it, respecting it, submitting to it when it is greater than our own. But humanity taught us something else that day, something far more dangerous than strength. They taught us what it looks like when a species simply refuses to lose. I still think about Elena Marsh's face on that feed, grief-stricken, unshakable, giving the order anyway. I think about it every time some new delegation whispers that Earth's fleet is small, that humanity is young, that they could be pushed around. I always tell them the same thing now. Ask the Kryvax how that worked out.